The Gopher football team, the University of Minnesota, has 11 wins for the first time since 1904, so it's been a good week for this guy, defenseman Nate Schmidt of the Golden Knights, who is also a Gopher with shared alma mater. Hey. Nate, how's it going?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. That's a very nice prelude to the podcast. Really nice. Go Gophers, and thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
No problem. Well, we're talking to you as you're about to start Game 5 of a 7-game homestand tomorrow against the Pittsburgh Penguins. First off, is it weird to be at home this much for basically 2 straight weeks during the season?
You know, I don't know what movie. I can't remember what it's from. It's like you don't know what to do with my hands for this long, right? You just kind of, I don't know what I should do for this long. But it almost felt as though every day we get done with a game, you're like, okay, so where are we going? You know, are we supposed to be leaving somewhere? Or did you guys pack your bags? You know, because we'd been on the road. And even when we came home, it was for a day or two. And that's tough, you know. And so it's been nice. You have some people schedule trips around this time, you know, friends and family get to make their way in. And, yeah, I mean, it's weird though. I mean, you're used to going and playing and moving around and all that jazz, but we're going to have a lot of road games here in the next month or so. So you enjoy this time at home when you can.
You talk about all those road games. What is it like to be on the road as an NHL player? Like, what people I'm sure at home are like, I don't even know what that's like, but what is it like to be on the road?
Man, I gotta tell you, I mean, it's awesome. I love playing at home, and there's nothing like playing hockey here. The hockey part aside, it's great because you get 24 grown kids that go out and just is like, and you go into these cool cities and it's just a playground. You're like, hey, what do you guys want to do today? Oh, let's walk around and do this, or let's go shopping, or I mean, that's for at least for me. That's what I like to you go out and see the city, and you just do a little bit more than just sit in your hotel room. And there are guys, I play with guys that you get on the road, it's lockdown, into the room service, Netflix until 4 a.m. Unless, you know what I mean? Go to bed, get up and play.
Do you regret not having Las Vegas as a road destination ever?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like New York City. A little bit like I would go to a show. Like when I'm in New York City, I always try and go to a show, you know, and so that's what I would do, you know, and it's fun to have, but we have it. So we have the luxury of being able to have any type of road game, any time, you know, after the game, like Sunday or Saturday, I can't remember where I played, a 1:00 game. It was fantastic. You get out, have a little dinner, enjoy the strip a little bit, head home, be home by 10 o'clock. Fantastic. I know that's not how most visitors do it, but I guess that's how most locals do it.
Well, we'll ask you a little bit about hockey. Obviously, 4 games in a row you guys have won. How much do you guys feel you've turned the corner as a team? How good do you guys feel about your game right now?
You know what? I like a lot of parts of our game right now. I like the way we've responded in games. I always find that's a really good mark of a team is how you respond, especially when you go down, especially when your back's against the wall a little bit. It's easier for last game to just kind of fold it up after 20 minutes and gone home. But I like the way our guys responded to that. And that's something that had been something we've been used to, I guess. And I think sometimes you take it for granted. You know, at the beginning of the year, you look at yourself like, I can't believe we didn't come back, or, oh man, you know, what's wrong? Why aren't we doing this? We used to do this all the time. And I think you take it for granted a little bit. You know, it's hard. It's hard to do it. And when you do it, you got to enjoy that moment, right? And like it was a heck of a game. It was a lot of fun, a lot of ups and downs in the game. I mean, for us, it's a little bit easier not to be an emotional roller coaster because you're on the ice and you can do something about it. I can only imagine what it's like to watch it. So, well, I think T-Mobile got its money's worth that night.
What about, I guess, your game individually? Because you've obviously had an interesting start to the year where I'm sure you were excited to actually start the year on the team this time. And then
right at sabbatical for me, yes.
Right at the end of the first period, you collide with Logan Couture and obviously kind of had that speed bump right away. So what's this year kind of been like for you?
Yeah, it's been up and down. I mean, there's been times where, you know, at first you're just trying to get back, and then it's trying to get your timing back. And then, you know, you might have a setback or two, and it's just getting yourself to not think about it is hard. But it was, you know, I guess I'd say I'd rather take this year's start, obviously. But it's always tough to go through that. And mentally, it's really hard. For guys that are hurt. If you're hurt by yourself, it's really challenging because you're not around the guys. You're in at separate times. You're like for Cody Eakin, we were on the road. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be hurt. You're in here. You don't see the guys. You feel very disconnected from the team. And I shouldn't say thankfully, but Malcolm and Alex Tuck were in the same position. So we were all, and Peyton Krebs, was here as well. And we were just kind of going through the rehab part of it. And you at least get to go with guys together. So, I mean, it's been, this year's been tougher, the things, I think our first 2 years after you got through the suspension, it was, for me on the ice, it just seemed a little easier. Things were coming easier. This year it's been a little bit tougher. There are more games that you want more out of your play. But you know what? And that's why I enjoy this journey. Like, if it's always going to be easy, it's not as fun, right? If you can get yourself out of these types of situations, that's when you can look back and say, man, like that was a gut check moment for your team. That's a gut check moment for yourself. And it's not always going to be perfect. So you finding ways. That's not my favorite part of sports. Guys that can find ways to get things done. Whether it's sports or for you guys, you got to get something out that night. Just finding a way to do it. And that's what I always find the most satisfaction in my life, I guess.
So I actually am going to go to Austria this summer. I'm looking forward to that.
Man,
what is it like?
I'm telling you, I don't know where you're going, but it's fantastic. I loved it. It was, aside for why I was there,
yeah.
it was unbelievable. It's just something. The people were incredibly nice and welcoming. I lived in I don't even know how to really, like a locals community. Like there was no, like I had to go in and ask very politely if they had English menus and things like that. And once I started, I could always order a few things in German, beer being one of them. I learned how to order beers and it was actually funny. The first night I met the guys on the road with the team, we were in Dornbirn. It was kind of up in the Alps on the western side of Austria. And we were at this small little bar, just meeting the guys after they had won the game. We had 2 days in between the next game. And one of the Austrian guys was kind of messing with me. He's like, yeah, Sieben, I didn't know what means 7.
Okay.
And she's like, yeah, whenever you order beers, you just Sieben Bier, bitte. It means 7 beers, please. So I remember sitting down for the first time when I got back home, and I was like, Sieben Bier, bitte. And the guy looked at me like, you're the only one. It was just me at lunch. So he walks out with 7 beers and puts them on the table. And I went, oh, man, this is not right. And it was back in like my local part. So, it wasn't like the tourist area where they would have been like, hey, buddy, you don't need 7 beers. But,
how long did it take you to drink the 7 beers?
I tried. I ended up giving a few of them away to people that were next to me. But it was funny. It was great, though. I don't know where are you going to be?
Go to Salzburg.
Awesome. I've only heard great things.
Yeah.
So you're obviously very self-deprecating about the suspension, but I'd like to ask you just a little more seriously in terms of how tough it's been the last year plus. Maybe the things that you've tried to advocate for here, kind of going forward. What's the process been like for you with that since the suspension?
Yeah, it was really hard mentally, and even sometimes it's you think back and you're like, man, I can't believe that actually all went through, right? And again, we're at a place now where a lot of talk has been going on. You have a lot of progress happening behind the scenes, which is great. I think hopefully we'll see something here in the next little bit, and it makes me happy that that's going to happen. That being said, it sucks going and talking about it sometimes, and you have to re-go through everything that you did and everything that you did with the cases and everything you did with the arbitration, all the hearings and all the things like that. And that's a pretty low point. For me, I like to have a pretty positive outlook on things, and even for me, it was a pretty dark time. Right, you go through that. It's hard. It's hard to have your character in question, and it's not a fun thing to go through. But that being said, a year and a half later, I couldn't be happier with how things have progressed and how. I mean, it took me a little bit to get over everything that happened. So, I like the spot that we're in as a league, as the NHLPA and myself, and how it's moving forward. And I'm hoping that, like I said, if something like my situation ever happens, I hope it doesn't happen to anybody ever again.
It's obviously a very different situation, but for Zykov to go through the same thing, this year as far as suspension and everything else, like bringing up everything that you went through last year again and kind of recycling that stuff. How difficult is that to kind of go through?
It brings back a lot of heartache, right? And that was something that you look back and you say, look at my situation and just from that standpoint, going through missing the guys and whatnot, and it's hard. So for me, it was you just try and immerse yourself as much as you can in living in Vienna and things like that. But so you understand, that side of things. But yeah, it brought up a lot of, especially for me, it brought back a lot of harsh memories, and things you had to go through in order to, and be sitting here with you guys right now.
On the opposite side of that, we talk a lot about, did anybody expect this out of the Golden Knights? Like, of course not. Nobody expected the success that you guys have had and everything else. On a personal level, like when you find out, okay, I'm going to Vegas, could you ever imagine what was going to happen for you personally as far as the attention and being beloved here and like becoming this big star here? Like, could you ever imagine that was going to happen?
I thank you. I appreciate that.
That's true.
I love being here, and I didn't know, when it was so bittersweet for me because I was leaving a very good team. I was leaving a team where I finally got to play in the top four, and I finally got to play. For 3 years they traded to take my spot. Tim Gleason, Mike. In St. Louis is Mike Weber, and then Kevin Shattenkirk. Every year that I was there to go, they traded for somebody to take my spot. So that was really hard to swallow. After the third time, I was just like, you gotta be kidding me, But ended up getting to the playoffs that last year, and I thought, man, I have a chance. I'm just starting to kind of get into the scene in Washington, feel like you belong there after a year or two. But I was so excited because I knew Eric Haula was coming here. I was really excited to see what would it be like. And I always loved visiting Vegas. Yeah. I always got cleaned out when I came, but I donated to probably the future, Golden Knights Fund. But you know what? I always liked coming. It's like, we'll see. It's Vegas. We'll see how it all plays out. And I tell this to everybody, you just could not have imagined or put it into words how it has come full circle and how it has become a hotbed that it is now. I mean, that first, day we got here just for practice, I remember just, a lot of people hanging around, a lot of buzz around the guys, and just most awkward locker room situation in my life. No one knew anyone. It was like, hey man, how's it going? Hey, what are we doing here? It's overhead press upstairs in the weight room. Sounds good. Good talk. I'll see you on the ice. So, other than that, you had a few guys, but it was, you really couldn't describe how it's all, and for me personally, I love it here. My mom always asks me sometimes, are you going to actually come home? And I'm like, Mom, I love it here. I think it's great. It's fantastic. I mean, our winters, I wear a light jacket, like when it's 50, and long pants because I'm soft when it comes to weather now.
Yeah, I'm bundled up.
Same.
Right? I mean,
It leaves you quick.
Yeah, it leaves you so quick. I went home for Christmas, and I had about 4 different layers on when I went to the Christmas Eve Mass, and I was like, I shouldn't be doing this. But I will tell you, and it was like 30 degrees, which is tropical winter in Minnesota. So I love being here. It's fun. The people are really nice, and just people are passionate about the team, which it makes it fun to be here.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you talked about there about your spot kind of constantly being taken with the Capitals. I think a lot of people don't know. I mean, you started at St. Cloud Cathedral, defending 1A state champions in Minnesota.
Thank you. Wow, yeah. Cheers to those guys.
Went to the University of Minnesota, but you went undrafted, and you had to kind of really earn your way into the league. how much did being undrafted and having to kind of prove yourself every step up the ladder help you or motivate you?
And I don't know if this is actually true, or if it's just something that I put in my own head. But like I always thought, when I was undrafted, I was like, oh man, the drafted guys always get the chance, right? Like, they're always the ones, I was the expendable one my freshman year because I wasn't drafted, right? There was no one breathing down anyone's neck to have me play. And then as my sophomore year kind of came along, everything kind of turned around. And when I went to sign to be a pro, I felt the same way when I got to, into Hershey. It was, man, they got these draft picks. They're going to be ones that get the chance. And so I always try to have this chip on my shoulder. Like, I'm kind of expendable. I'm I'm a free agent guy. I got to make sure I prove my worth. And it was my first year. I was up and down with and it was really hard. My team in Hershey, I ended up getting hurt that year. It was a tough team. It wasn't really my favorite group that I've ever played with. But then my second year is when I think I kind of found my groove. It was an awesome team. Went down with a much different attitude than I did the first time. Because the first time you get sent down, you think you're never coming back. Yeah. Honestly, it's the hardest thing ever. And I want to tell guys, especially when you're a young guy, you get sent down, it's mainly because there's other guys, there are contracts that need to be playing, and things to happen, and experience is everything in this game. Everyone wants to say you have a guy that's played in the playoffs, and so I got a chance to play in some playoffs in Hershey, and then made your way up through Washington. And there's never really it wasn't really a defining moment until I had a great playoff run and came here. It takes a few years to really kind of make your mark on things.
So the scouting report on you has always been your strength as a skater. And I'm curious about that because you remind me of the kid that when we played pickup hockey just never got tired. And it used to drive me nuts because I would always be chugging around and you're just cruising along, gliding, like nothing. So have you always been that way? Maybe where does the, efficiency in your stride kind of come from?
I would tell you, I was always pretty good. My brother was a really, really good skater, and my sister figure skated. They're both older. She was actually probably the best skater of all of us, because figure skaters are so much better than hockey skaters. I used to never believe that until I went on the ice with, like when I was in college with some of the girls that did cheer squad, and they were figure skaters. I'm like, man, you guys are so much better than we are. It's outrageous, like their edges and everything. So it makes a big difference, honestly, to start in almost figure skating. But my brother did, so I think he was really good. But it's just, when I was in fourth grade, we had this, our elementary school, and right next to right across the road, not a busy road, was this massive park called Pantown Park, and they would flood the entire thing. Okay. It was massive. It was about the size of 4 rinks. And then this one little tiny little warming house, and my buddy lived right across the street. And we would just play until our parents came and picked us up. So you just kind of play until your toes freeze, and you go inside, you warm them up, and you come back out and skate again.
That's much awkward.
That's about as much. And then you just kind of skate until you. And we did that for an entire year. I think that really kind of helped me become a really good skater. I mean, you have to, because especially when you're a fourth grader, you got the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders. You got to keep up to everybody, right?
Right.
And then you got your brother, who's he was the cat's pajamas, growing up. So I was trying to catch him, and so I don't know. I've always had that. You always got to try and get to that next part.
So we talk. He asked, "Have you always been that way as far as skating?" Have you always been Nate Schmidt? Because it's always been you. And I think along those same lines, there's a lot of guys that have big personalities, and then we turn a recorder on or we turn a camera on, and it's like, we're just trying to win the game today. But you're not. I mean, like, is that a conscious decision from you to say, like, this is who I am and I'm going to talk about it?
Yeah. So yes and no. I mean, I was always this way with my family.
Yeah.
I was always nervous to show people who I actually was when I was growing up. Like my really close group of friends knew, but other than that, that was it. And when at school, you try, in school, you're trying to be the cool guy, right? And then college was the same way. It's so many highly touted prospects. I didn't really come out of my shell until I kind of turned pro. I mean, like I did, for the most part, when I was at school, I would every once in a while. But to get where I am now, it took till my last year of college and my first 2 years of pro, where I just said, screw it. Like, if you're not cool with with this, then fooey on you, And then, and it's way more fun, I've always had fun, and I always try to as best I can, and it's I mean, I do decompress when I go home some days. I don't bounce off the
Turn it
walls
off.
at home. I don't bounce off the walls at home as much as I do, at the rink and, when we're out on the road. But I just think there's so much more to, than being Mr. Mundane,
So I actually asked you about this the first year. I'm kind of curious. I'd asked you about how much of that is you understanding you can be a little bit of a lightning rod for the attention in the locker room, take some of the pressure off some of the other guys, and whether you feel like maybe that's a little bit, of your role in a locker room, I guess.
Yeah. You know what's funny that you say that? First of all, I can't remember that you said that a year and a half, 2 years ago. I can't remember what I ate for breakfast.
I compared you to Dennis Rodman.
I remember,
and
I do remember
yes.
the lightning rod thing, actually, now that you say it. I see sometimes a little lightning rod
There you go. Yeah.
jolt to the memory. That's funny you say that because today in practice, Turk comes over to me and goes, "Are you only going to talk today or are you going to practice as well?" I go, "Turk, this is part of my job." And he starts laughing. He's like, "Yeah, you're right." And then he comes back over after the 2-on-1 drill was over, and I had given up. I've gone like 8 or 9 times. And I didn't give up a goal, and he's like, "Yeah, I tell you, I mean, you did kind of show up at practice. I didn't see you give up a goal." I go, "I can do more than just talk, Turk. I can do more than just hoop and holler and yell and sorry, my voice is getting really loud. I get really excited and yell at Flower, Subi. I don't know. I find that when you dog on guys in a fun way, it's good. But when a guy makes a great save or Flower, like it's good to know about it. A guy makes a great play, like it's good to know it. It's good to know the guy saw it. And I don't know. It always gives me a little extra if I break up a play and comes back and Johnny Merrill whacks me on the shoulder, like, "Man, what a great play, great stick." It's like, "Man, thanks, man. That's great." It's just a little bit makes I don't know. It means a lot to me. So I guess I just try and bring that to other guys as well.
All right. Well, you've been very generous with your time with us. We got one more question. Thanks so much for coming on, Nate. I have heard, of course, stories of you at the Wabasha Caves. For those who don't know, that's a old St. Paul speakeasy in Minnesota that was turned into a swing dancing joint.
Yes.
How good of a swing dancer are you?
Oh, man. So I would say I'm a very, in a Star Wars term, I'm a Padawan learner. I have some type of talent. Whether or not I can harness that type of talent remains to be seen. When I went there, I made the mistake of bringing one shirt. It was hot. It was like one of the first times I went there too with my now girlfriend Allie, and she just was having fun, and I was leaking. I'm like, "Man, this girl thinks I'm gonna be a puddle of sweat here in a second." But I actually just told her, I was like, "Hey, I need like a half hour. Just let me just watch." And there was this. He had to be 75-year-old guy, and he was. I don't know I think it was his niece or his granddaughter or something. She was like, in her 20s, and he was just twirling her around like it was unbelievable, like a ballet dancer, just flying around. He was doing these moves, and I just walked up to him. I just shook his hand. I said, "Thank you. I really appreciate everything you've done for me." He looks at me. He's like, "What are you talking about?" I go, "I've been watching for the last half hour. School was in session." So I picked up some moves, and then I kind of just. I'm much better at freestyling, but so I just, that type of dancing, salsa dancing is much more, choreographed. But I'd say a good C+ with an ability to be like a B, depending on music selection, how many drinks people are there watching me, and just depends on maybe my energy level that day.
Awesome. Well, Nate, thank you so much. We really appreciate having you on.